Right, we're getting started now, councillors. So we are resuming on item 9. So Councillor McPherson had just completed speaking. So any other councillors for or against the Councillor Leary?
Just some comments. Thank you, Your Worship.
So are you speaking for or against the motion?
I'm speaking against the motion.
Okay.
When I received the notice of motion, it didn't have any information on there that enabled me to be clear about what process was followed, and that's why I asked the questions around code of conduct. If it was a breach of code of conduct, as Councillor McPherson has rightly pointed out, there are quite substantial processes to follow in our code of conduct, and they list possible courses of action around apologies, mediation, etc. So there's quite a formal process. Obviously that's not the case here. Councillor Wilson did send out all of the emails, unlike what I received from the courier pack last night, which was just one email, which didn't give me a full picture. And as the facts quite clearly state to me anyway, from the 23rd of March to the 27th of March was when the Statutory Committee met. The item was put on the agenda. At a certain point later in the day after the applicant withdrew, that's when Councillor Wilson sent his email, and several days after that the applicant then decided to rescind his application and appeal the decision. Putting all that aside, I think the punishment far outweighs the crime. This is the first time since I've been on this council that anything like this has come up, and I do believe that Councillor Wilson made an apology to the committee when they first raised this. Any form of disciplinary action against an elected member is a very, very serious matter. I think the notice of motion hasn't followed clear process. I think this is, as often Councillor Gower has said in the past, this is using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Might have been walnut, I think he said. I don't think that the notice of motion has provided me with any other information other than to not accept this. And I think that the notice of motion, because of that, was sorely lacking, and I'm disappointed in that process. So those are my reasons why I won't be supporting that.
Right, any other councillors speaking for or against the motion? No? Yes, Councillor Gallagher.
Yes, Your Worship. I
Are you
have
speaking
listened
for or against the motion, Councillor Gallagher?
As I started, I will not be supporting the motion for the reason that I don't believe that this is the proper process and forum to take such a significant and serious action in terms of removing a councillor from a committee of the council, particularly statutory management. And I do respect the sincerity, obviously, of the people who have signed this notice of motion, but I am not happy with the process, and I agree with the observations of Councillor McPherson in terms of due process. On the face of it all, the only evidence I have is that there was a comment made by Ewan Wilson on his private email to the applicant after the application had clearly been withdrawn, in terms of the applicant advising council of that and council noting it. So in terms of a good faith issue, Ewan Wilson was under the impression that the application was at an end, and I do acknowledge the point in terms of the 10 days, and I acknowledge that. Was Ewan Wilson's comment wise or unwise? I suspect it was obviously a little unwise. In life and around this council table, sometimes we take unwise actions. A $40 million unwise action, of which we now see nothing left, could be regarded as a significant unwise action. I'm not aware councillors had to resign from their particular committee positions because of that decision. However, the real issue, I think, is raised by Councillor McPherson, in that I think there is another way. Councillor McPherson mentioned the issue of code of conduct, so there is a process issue. And I do urge councillors, before taking this very serious step, to reflect on, is this the right process to be followed, and are you satisfied with the tabled evidence that you have been given in order to make a decision on what is a very, very serious step that you're being asked to take today? Is there an issue? Yes, there is an issue. Should the issue be addressed? Yes, it should be addressed. Are there some relativities? Yes, there are some relativities, and I gave you an example of a relativity just before. So on that basis, in terms of the process, I will not be supporting this particular motion.
Okay. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Your Worship. There are two reasons normally given to remove somebody from a committee of council. Often it's for a serious infraction. An infraction like failing to declare pecuniary interest with an applicant or a witness, like failing to declare a former relationship with a witness or an applicant. Or the other scenario is one that is purely an orchestrated, politically motivated attempt for revenge. I think it was Hannibal Lecter who once said, "Revenge a meal served best cold." So I intend to spend the next few minutes illustrating why clearly at the centre of this infraction it couldn't be the former. What this is about is an application to the Statutory Committee where an application was decided upon and the hearing was ended. The applicant was unhappy with the decision and chose to write an email to staff saying, on Friday the 23rd of March at 2:31 p.m, following the statutory management hearing today, I resolved to withdraw my application. Because he pointed out his frustration with the lack of knowledge of the Liquor Licensing Act by the committee members. He mentions in the email that the only one who appears to have a grasp of the critical issues was Councillor Wilson. And he withdraws. He says, in fact, the licence you've given me is more arduous than the one I already have. Staff write back some 30 minutes later, we accept or we acknowledge your decision to withdraw, and P.S. there's no refund. I, some hour later, upon receiving the email that he had asked staff to circulate to all members of the committee, upon seeing that he had withdrawn, upon seeing that staff had acknowledged it, sent a 4-line private communication from my private email address that says, Laurie, I just wanted to add my frustration with my colleagues' decision today. I did try very hard to convince them and took steps to mitigate some of the concerns, but still could not win the day. I am sorry, as what you are trying to do is good for the city. And I accept that the following sentence has caused some concern, and if it has, I apologise yet again. I apologised on a telephone conversation with Councillor Gower when he first raised it with me. I apologised again at a subsequent informal discussion of the committee. I said, We need to make sure that there is a change at the next election to people who can look past their own faith-driven views and what is good for the greater community. That's what I'm being held up for unethical behaviour, as Councillor Gower has articulated. The fact that Councillor Gower chose yesterday to circulate simply my email and not the balance of the email string supports my contention that this is politically motivated. This is Councillor Gower feeling a little bit displaced and wanting to assert his control, a good revenge against Councillor Wilson for some of the things that he says and critiques that he makes. I thought, from a person who believes in the premise of natural justice, it would have simply been common courtesy to have supplied all the information. He could have decided to go one step further. He could have decided to circulate the reason for the appeal, where the applicant doesn't refer at all to me in regards to my email, but refers to his concerns regarding hearsay evidence that Councillor Gower permitted in, and the lack of general institutional knowledge.
Extension required, please, Your Worship.
Time, Councillor O'Leary, Councillor Bell. Thank you.
And chose not to circulate that. In fact, Councillor Gower's most critical words on this matter has been his silence. I have enjoyed my time on the Statutory Committee. I've been there for nearly 8 years. I was Deputy Chair in my first 3 years, and I will miss the opportunity to participate as a member of the committee. And if I recall some of my decisions in the past with Councillor Gower and the balance of the team, I think we've made some good ones. But I think a personal communication from my personal email, post when the applicant had withdrawn his application, when staff had received and acknowledged that, is not a hanging offence, is not an offence that requires removal from the committee, but I will happily live with the decision of council today. But I do leave you with this question. Is this really about transparency and due process, or is it in fact not more a chapter from The Silence of the Lambs, Revenge is Best Served Cold, Councillor Gower?
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Okay, Councillor Mahood? Are you for or against the motion, Councillor
I'm for
Mahood?
the motion.
For the
I
motion,
don't
thank you.
usually change my mind. I didn't do this motion, sign this motion with any intent of enjoyment. It was nothing to do with I wish to do it. It was because the process, from my perspective, and I wish to endorse what Councillor Gower has done, is that Councillor Wilson was given full opportunity to apologise to his colleagues, which he has yet not done.
Point of order, Your Worship.
Okay.
Councillor Mahood has stated a fact that is untrue. I'm sure Councillor Gower will recite in the informal discussion where I acknowledge that I apologise if the final sentence caused hurt, and I'm sure Councillor Gower will also recall an apology I gave on the telephone, in which case Councillor Mahood's statement is untrue.
So just, Councillor Mahood, just in response to that?
Yes.
Yes.
I wrote down while we had this informal, and I mean referring to the silence.
Point of order, Your Worship. Are you not ruling on my point of
I'm
order?
hearing
Explaining.
just quiet, I'm hearing Councillor Mahood's response
I
to
wrote
what you
down
said,
what
Councillor
I
Wilson. Thank you.
thought was said by Mr. Wilson, Councillor Wilson. He raised with John the issue that that Ewan had spoken to John prior to today's meeting, and that he had apologised to him. And that was, in my understanding, what I had heard. What I had not heard at that stage was an apology to the rest of the committee. So I'm putting it into context, Your Worship. So I want to just, if I may, be allowed to finish, and then...
So on the point of order, I think what Councillor Mahood said, Councillor Mahood talked about an apology to colleagues as opposed to the chair. and she's clarified that from her notes, so,
Well, from my understanding of my notes, and I
Yes.
did try to write that.
I have a further point
no,
of order.
sit,
No, I've-
councillor McPherson, sit, I'm dealing with this matter
Okay,
first.
will
So
you
councillor
finish?
Wilson, that's her response. So I think she's made the distinction between councillor Gower's chair and colleagues, meaning other councillors, and she's read that from her notes. So
Your
I'm
Worship.
overruling, so I'm going to deal with the notice of motion.
I'm happy to apologise, Your Worship, if it's given the wrong impression for
Yes.
now.
So what I'm going to ask Councillor Moore to do is just to be very careful in terms
thank
of
you.
making the distinctions when you're speaking. And no, Councillor McPherson, I've finished dealing with
Yeah,
that
and
matter.
I have another point of order, Your
Right,
Worship.
and what is
it
that?
doesn't, I have no idea what was said
Right.
at the committee, so I'm not redressing that. But Councillor Mahood made a statement she had yet to hear Councillor Wilson apologise. I heard in this meeting, and the records will show, I think, Councillor Wilson apologised in this meeting. That's the only thing
Yes,
I'm referring to.
and Councillor McPherson is quite correct. Councillor Wilson has just a moment ago apologised to his colleagues in this forum. So Councillor
I
Moore,
was
carry on,
going
thanks.
to qualify it, but I'm sorry if I
Thank you.
sometimes get the wording not quite as accurate, and I'm trying to actually keep emotion out of this
Thank
whole
you.
thing. Ewan kindly reminded us that he'd been on hearings for 8 years, and I certainly concur with that. I would have thought that someone who had been on for 8 years would have a good understanding of the process, and this is about process today, of what you do and how you do it, and the distinction between local government acts, RMA acts and liquor licensing acts, and the appropriateness of things. But there are some fundamental issues that are there. I certainly have not spoken out to now because I wish to give my colleagues the opportunity to actually hear all of this, and also to give Councillor Wilson the opportunity, which I don't think I heard today, and I could be corrected, that he was given an opportunity. Ewan, apologise collectively to people. This is why it's quiet. Go and do the course, which you have not completed, even though you've done 8 years on this, and it's forgotten.
Point of order, Your Worship.
Yes.
Councillor Mahood again is misleading the chamber.
I will ask the chair to clarify.
Councillor Mahood, sorry, I'm just hearing the point of order.
I have completed the original course and qualified.
Right.
What Councillor Mahood may have wanted to say, that I have not recently done a renewal course.
Thank
She implied that I had not done any of the courses.
Yes.
In fact, I have. I have the certificate sitting in my wall.
Yes.
I did pass. It was in my first term.
Right.
She is correct in saying that I haven't done a renewal, nor am I required to do so under the statute
Yes.
when there are a number of other members of the committee who have completed the renewal.
Yes, so I think, Councillor Wilson, you're correct. You haven't done the updated course.
That's right.
Yes.
And if I've been allowed to finish, I was going to say, because it has lapsed, understand that. Understand that. But the important thing I'm trying to suggest is that being given the opportunity to update and renew, because the world has changed and the Commissioner's training is a lot more complicated than it used to be, because the environment, the RMA, a whole pile of other things has changed. It is a good thing to do. My understanding that was offered and refused, knowing that the second alternative would be to go to notice of motion. So that's the background from my point of view of what I felt needed to be brought forward. The whole reason his colleagues were discreet was to give him the opportunity, in my words, to address the issues, but obviously chose a different path.
Your Worship, point of order.
Yes.
Point of order. Again, Councillor Mahood is misleading the chamber. I was presented an opportunity to resign or go to a notice of motion. There was no suggestion about completing the renewal course. It was simply Councillor Wilson resign, or we'll take this to a notice of motion.
Okay, thank you.
I think she again has misled the chamber.
Thank
In
you.
which case I will apologise again.
So Councillor
because-
Mahood, just focusing then on the actual motion, perhaps is the best way
I
to
will
approach
focus
your
on the
submission.
motion.
How many, point of order, Your Worship, how many apologies is Councillor Mahood going to be able to
So
have
Councillor
today
Wilson, I'm just
before
going to
she's
ask you
required to tell just the truth?
to sit and to listen to the submission, and you've heard me direct Councillor Mahood to focus her submission on the motion before the council. So carry on. Thank you, Councillor Mahood.
Thank you. I am, as I said at the outset, supporting this because I think in the view of the fact of time of when this occurred, March to now, there has been ample opportunity, in my opinion, for redress to occur, and this is the last opportunity that I feel is there. This is about the reputation of this council's hearings committee, the statutory process in every guise, and to make sure that when we know we're coming up to a very major statutory process with the district plan review, we are considered by the public to have got the best available opportunity to upskill ourselves for whatever that future may be. This sort of thing, to me, is something that offends the reputation, to me, of the committee. It puts at risk the reputation of the very good statutory management process that has been in place, and in fact has been used by many throughout the country as being the best way to go. This, I will refer to again, is a process. I would not have chosen this path and not chosen to have gone this way to speak if it had been for me to decide. The reality is it has happened. I have made a choice to say I will support it. I support it with regret, but on the other hand, I do know that it's very important that the reputation of this city is more important at this stage of where we're going than not. And it happens. We know it happens, but this isn't a political committee. This is a committee that has to be unbiased, clear in what it needs to do, and clear in its execution of what is presented to it. Fair and unbiased. I would like to think that all of us have that ability to do that, and I urge people to go and do the formal course so that they can be reconsidered on this committee again. Thank you.
Councillor. Right, councillors.
You wish,
Okay.
just a procedural matter.
Yes,
I just
councillor.
want to highlight page 25 of the agenda, item 9, which is the resolution of notice of motion. I know just an administrational thing, but the members, the name, Councillor Westphal, is not even spelt correctly. I wonder if the notice of motion to have any real credence and credibility that Councillor Mahood's going on about, that in fact the members' names, the elected members' names, should be spelt correctly.
Look, it's a good idea to make sure that we correctly spelt people's names. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Councillor Wilson. Very
You're
helpful. Right, so councillors, moving on. So Councillor Forsyth, and then thank you, Councillor Forsyth.
Thank you, Your Worship. As Deputy Chair, I take my role on the Statutory Management Committee seriously. As Council, we need to ensure that at all times our processes are legally compliant, accommodate good judgment, and are above reproach.
Thank you. So Councillor, have you got a right to reply? No?
Yes.
Right,
Thank
quickly.
you. Right to reply, is it?
Yes, if you wish to.
Yes, I will. And I will not be mentioning councillors' names here, because I think that brings personalities into it. What I will be doing, just covering some of the points that have actually been raised, if I can, in no particular order. And but probably to start off with, I would hope that no one around this table here, or even perhaps in the chamber, questions my genuine endeavours in getting statutory management to the highest possible level to make everybody proud. And I hope no one actually challenges that. They may challenge a heap of other stuff. Let's do that. Very, very disappointed that amongst everything that has come out, probably the most single part that has not come out at this stage, and I have to circulate those papers, is the fact that that email forms part of the appeal procedure that is going through the court. I do have papers to confirm that. And, Your Worship, I will present those papers if there's any question about that. So I'm sad that there hasn't been that openness about it. So that just puts some of what we've been talking about into a slightly different category and probably explains how important some of these processes are. So I hope I make that perfectly clear. Right. Code of conduct. Sure. This is not about the code of conduct. This is about a process of council selecting a new statutory management committee. There's been talk about lack of process. In actual fact, the advice that I've got, and from my belief, the process has been completely according to our standing orders. Sure, there haven't been reams and reams and reams of papers circulated for one very simple reason. I do not want this to be turned into a political bun fight. I asked my Statutory Management Committee to try and control their emotions, and I'd like to take this point of congratulating every member of that committee for actually doing that. No knee-jerk reactions. Right, there was talk about the emails and probably the dates of the emails. I'll make two comments if I can. The date of the email from a particular member is hours after the hearing had concluded. 2, and to follow the dates and times, Your Worship, the applicant only decided to appeal after the receipt of the email for that particular member. I'm not putting any connection between the two whatsoever, that is important. But I just noted that time and dates.
Your Worship, point of order.
And what is that, Councillor Wilson?
It would have been so much easier. In fact, I did provide copies that I gave Anthony Dick of the string of emails.
Yes, and you did circulate those to councillors last
that's
night,
good.
Councillor Wilson.
Because Councillor Gar is somewhat misleading. If you follow the trail of the emails, 23rd of March at 2:31, the applicant withdraws his application. 23rd of March at 3:01, staff acknowledges that. And it's not until some days later that the applicant files his appeal. And in his appeal, there is no mention of my email other than at the bottom where he says, as part of all the documents that are submitted. And there is no aspect of his appeal that refers to anything in my email. He refers it to the chairman's leadership and hearsay evidence and the lack of the committee's understanding of the liquor licence.
Yes, I think Councillor Wilson...
Councillor Gower has misled him.
No, I don't think so, actually, Councillor Wilson. What Councillor Gower said in terms of the time frames of things, he said that the notice of appeal was filed after your email, and that's factually accurate. And so that was his point, and he then also sought not to draw any conclusions on that. He was simply stating the facts in terms of the timeline. So I'm overruling on the notice of motion. So Councillor Gower, can you continue, please? And please note you've only got a couple of minutes left on your time frame.
I do apologise about that. But I have that documentation here, if there's any question.
Yes, well, they have been circulated, Councillor Gower, last night, so everyone does have it.
Sorry, no, this one hasn't.
Right, okay.
This is a document
to
verify that this email is part of the appeal.
Yes, that's right. I don't think there's
So
dispute on that.
we'll go on regarding the proper process. I believe the proper process has been followed. I believe that this situation we're in is a little bit more serious than code of conduct. People get slapped over the wrist, everybody moves on, and perhaps the same behaviour may continue on. I, as Chair of Statutory Management, cannot afford for that to happen. The principles, we're talking about a liquor licensing thing. This could have serious ramifications for a complicated RMA hearing that lasts on for days and days and days. It has ramifications for probably the process we're about to go into with the district plan. And it's probably what we're doing as Statutory Management is actually drawing a line in the sand, saying two things. Firstly, this type of behaviour should not continue to happen in this council. And if it does, that's over to council. Secondly, it will not be tolerated in statutory management. End of story. We talked about apologies.
extension required, Your Worship?
And I'll only be probably about 30 seconds, Your
Right, so
Worship.
we've got Councillor Mahood and Councillor Westphal, thanks.
We're talking about apologies. Your Worship, it's so easy to say, I apologise, and let's get on with it. It's so easy to apologise, then straight after that, and I suspect there's probably a point of order coming up.
Well, then don't go there, Councillor Gow, if you suspect one.
No, I only suspect it, but I'm not quite sure, so I might test it.
Don't test me then.
Okay then, well I won't. It's probably I should really stop at that and not go much further. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gow.
Your
Right,
Worship,
Councillor, yes.
yes, I do have a point of order, and I didn't want to interrupt Councillor Gow's fine flow.
So what is the point of order?
He referred twice during his speech just then to a document that he had in front of him and made a summary of that, and no one else, as far as I'm aware, in this room has seen that document, and he used the document to what was in it to make a point. Now, that's akin to a prosecution attorney in a court case saying they have some evidence in front of them and saying roughly what's in it without actually discussing it, presenting it to anyone. And I honestly think, I don't want to reopen the debate,
Yes,
but I honestly think we should...
No, so Councillor McPherson, I'm not sure that that's actually a point of order when I look at the clause in the standing orders. I don't think what you're raising is actually a point of order, but what you're raising is that there's information that perhaps the rest of us don't have. So
Yes.
Councillor Gow, to address that
I
point...
can circulate if you like.
Yes, so that, and you can do that, but now so there is no point of order, Councillor McPherson, it doesn't fit within the standing orders.
Your Worship,
But
just...
there is no,
Sit.
if there is other evidence, then I don't know what's in it, but we may need to discuss that again. You know principles of natural justice better than I do.
So this isn't a principle of natural justice at all, Councillor McPherson, and I do know those. So we are now going to vote on this motion. Okay, so councillors, I think we'll go to...
Well, Your Worship, I'm sorry, this is very bad practice now. I'm not prepared to vote on something when there is evidence that hasn't even been handed out, that's been referred to in a summing up of a situation. I'm not prepared to vote when I don't have that evidence. That is not good practice. I think you should at least be giving us all the opportunity to read that. I'm not asking for another speaking turn, but I'm asking for the opportunity to read that before you call a vote. And it hasn't been handed out.
Councillor McPherson, Mr Dick is handing out the information as we go, right? I'm not going to have any more discussion on this. Everyone's had their chance to talk, and we're going to go for a vote on it. So,
Your Worship, I wish to quote a member, a part of one of our Hamilton City Council standing orders.
which one?
3.8.9, right of reply.
Yes.
And the last sentence in that, it says movers in reply, which was Councillor Gow, are not to introduce any new matter and must confine themselves strictly to answering previous speakers.
So in that regard then, Councillor McPherson, no one should even have this, and we're not going to put into our decision-making process what Councillor Gow referred to earlier. So we're going to go vote now. So we're going to go on the board. Everyone's clear on the motion?
You say that you've got it yourself.
Councillors, we're voting. Is the system on, Anthony?
Yes, it is. It's
Right.
waiting for...
Ewan's been told he's got it. Anyway,
Councillor Gallagher, please, and Councillor O'Leary.
that's the wrong one.
Carried 8-4, Her Worship.
Right, thank you. Thank you, councillors. Right, now, next item on the agenda is the additional item on our agenda, which is in relation to the Bryce Street hazard. Now,
Are we able to circulate that?
yes, so, councillors, this is, the CEO advised me late yesterday afternoon that there would be this additional item, so I only had time overnight to get the information together. Thank you. What we might do, councillors, we'll just take 5 minutes for councillors just to read this information that's been given to them in this report form, and then we'll proceed with the item. Thank you.
Is that right? Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm not looking for that.
I'm just wondering whether I should get councillor Boss back in, Your
Yes,
Worship.
he's just got,
Well,
Yes, he's been,
committee advisors just want to get.
Okay, so how are we going there? Right, so I understand you do have a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, through your worship, the Mayor and councillors. This late item is with respect to recent information that we have received on the Bryce Street slip that occurred on the River Walkway in July last year. I have a presentation that will run through some background of that. I will ask Peter Cochrane from Tocklin and Taylor to go through some of the key findings of the report, and then I'll wrap up with some of the mitigations that we're working through currently with this. So this is an information update for you today on that information. So just with respect to, so just as background, the initial slip, which is shown in the photograph on the screen, occurred in July last year. At the time of the slip, the walkway was closed for immediately to the public for safety reasons. We commissioned Tonkin and Taylor to complete initial investigations into the slip, which identified that further geotechnical investigations were required to define soil stability and strength of the underlying soils. Further north, a slip was noticed in December, and then the actual geotechnical investigations occurred this year, and there were some delays with that because of the specialist drilling rigs have been tied up with Christchurch deployment. So that is the initial slip that occurred, and that is just north of the Claudelands Bridge. In terms of the land ownership, which is a key part to this picture, highlighted on the aerial photograph, the areas in red are owned by Hamilton City Council, so that's the Esplanade Reserve of the River Walkway to the north and Claudelands Bridge. The areas in blue are areas owned by Tainui, and the green strip is the Kiwi Rail Bridge. So they are all key stakeholders within this area, and that we have talked to those stakeholders since we've received this advice. What I'd like to do now is hand over to Peter, and he will provide an overview of the geotechnical information.
Okay, thank you. Welcome along. Thank you very much.
Could I just ask a question, Your Worship?
Yes.
With those circles of blue and red,
yes.
Where is the slip in relation to those areas? Is it in the blue or is it in the red?
So that is just where the slip is there.
In the blue part.
In the blue part.
In the Tainui. Okay, thank you.
And the second area of slip that occurred, is just in here on our land.
And just on that, is that Tainui or Tainui Group Holdings that own it?
It's Tainui Corporation, so not Group Holdings. Well,
right.
Group Holdings look after it, but it was part of the
settlement.
Yes.
Right, okay, thank you.
Thank you. In terms of the scope of our investigations, we really looked at two areas. One was looking broadly at the nature of instability along a section of the riverbank, because we'd identified there'd been two slips that had happened. I think Council was aware that probably 2 years ago there was a repair for what we called the London Street slip further up. And what we recommended to Council and what they accepted was a broad mapping of that area. Coupled with that was a particular site investigation for the Bryce Street slip. Our broad mapping and hazard assessment identified two areas which are shown in red, which really looked at high risks of the site in terms of instability. That area in there was in the area which the slip in December of last year occurred, and that area in there is where the slip of July 2011 occurred. That area extends from the end of Bryce Street down in front of the Ibis Hotel. So in terms of assets, we've got the IRD building in there. We've got some buildings over the other side of Bryce Street, which are Tainui owned. We've obviously got the Kiwi Rail Bridge, Claudelands Bridge, and part of the Ibis Hotel. This is just a blow-up of the Claudelands Road Bridge and the IRD building, showing the areas of instability that were met. The most recent landslide is that one in there, that's the July 2007. But as you can appreciate, in terms of those sort of arcuate features, there are a number of instability features along that reach, which affects not only the riverside as well, but potentially affects private landowning behind that. So the findings for our report is that the riverbank is in an area of high landslide hazard area. The slope is what we call as oversteep, and it's marginally stable. There are some loosely consolidated soils, and those are the sands and silts that you see in the riverbank along the walkway. They're over more cemented sands at depth, and those more cemented sands are some of the harder material that stands up immediately on the riverbank itself down by the river. There are some other contributing factors which are leading to instability. We get elevated groundwater levels from time to time. That's a result of seasonal fluctuations. Overland stormwater flow, and also some river processes may be causing that hazard as well. The landslides that we've mapped have been predominantly shallow. There are some occasional, some deep-seated ones. Most of the activities, as I said before, is in the Cordlands Road Bridge area. The recent land slipping has resulted in oversteep slopes, and that will mean for those areas that I identified before, and particularly the more recent ones, the headscarps or the top of those slips will continue to migrate further into the bank or further landward. The amount of regression is difficult to predict, but it's likely to be in the order of several metres. And that regression poses risks in terms of a number of assets, including councils' walkways and the assets of others. And they're outlined up there above. Some of those are of note. Vector has a gas main that runs between Bryce Street and the Cordlands Road Bridge. You've obviously got the road bridge and the rail bridge, which is Kiwi Rail operates that. Tainui own a number of assets, including 2 and 4 Bryce Street, Ibis Hotel and the IRD building. So the walkway remedial costs are potentially quite expensive, and they deal with, I suppose, issues that go outside beyond what the council can manage in terms of own assets. Our recommendations to the City Council was the notification of asset owners. We've recommended that the council walkway remains closed until the stabilisation measures have been put in place, and that stabilisation measures be implemented for both Bryce Street slip and that later one between Bryce Street and London Street. That was the one that I referred to in December of 2011. I suppose part of our costings around the investigations were based on that deeper cemented sand layer that I talked about before, and we've recommended to Council that we do some further investigations on that. If that sand is a lot harder than what we've anticipated or what we've managed to determine so far, then that will have implications in terms of the cost, and hopefully reduce the cost from what we've estimated for council staff. We've made recommendations around the modification of stormwater pipes and some chutes. Some of those pipes just terminate on the slope itself, and it's recommended that we run them to the base of the slope to the river level. There's some control of overland flow for stormwater. Some of that occurred immediately in response to the July 2011 event, and there's probably a wee bit more work that needs to be done there. There's a possibility that we could look at groundwater drainage to improve stability in that area. And there is a large tree above the walkway at the northwestern end of Cordlands Road, which is in a precarious situation and probably requires removal as well. In addition to that, we've recommended monitoring of the slopes, just to keep a watching brief on that area in the next little while.
Right, Sally, anything else you wanted to add?
So just as outlined within the report, the recommendations that we've received from Tonkin and Taylor, we are following through on those. So we are putting mitigations in place, so there's an increase in terms of monitoring of the sites, and going forward we are working with all of our key stakeholders to look at those assets, and we will come back to council with those remedial options. So we are happy to take any questions, and Chris is also.
Wisco?
Yes, this has happened before, further along, and is one of the things that you are going to be looking at, whether it is actually a bigger risk to keep it open?
If I can, through the Mayor, yes, that will be part of looking at the options of going forward, is about what is the best use of the riverbank and what is in terms of cost, is what our opportunities of having a walkway, cycleway through that area. So yes, that will be considered.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gow?
That we don't know about at this stage, firstly, and secondly, whether we should actually be carrying out some sort of basic investigations to see if other areas adjacent to this are also at risk that may not be determined as yet.
I think we need to reach an understanding that the riverbank environment is a dynamic environment. So there's going to be various hazards along that riverbank. In terms of particular geotechnical hazards, that's probably a steeper part of the river, is that sort of central city area. That doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't going to be landslides or slips occur in other parts, and council has engaged us on several occasions in the past to deal with small to large events as they have occurred. We also understand that council has, they've engaged us to look at other areas. I know we're just completing a report on the area of walkway north of Ann Street, and that's including both the stability of the ground, but also a review of the structures to make sure that they're up to standard in terms of their ability to withstand any landslide and their current level of construction.
Okay, just answer that if I can, Your Worship. If that is a factor, do you see that probably some of our internal processes and manuals may have to examine stormwater runoff that runs off from the top of the bank rather than, as you've explained, leading down probably into the river, and whether in actual fact we are exposed to that type of risk?
Perhaps I can answer that one. Look, this event and the report has certainly highlighted that there's a number of areas where we could do better in terms of stormwater management. I think probably more of concern is the overland flows and the runoff coming down onto the bank. So look, we've got a clear understanding of this hazard zone that we're looking at now, and we've got some, when the event happened in July, we took some actions then to try and manage it. This report has identified a few more, and a site walkover has identified some other things. So we're in the process now of just looking at that. But just talking as staff, we've identified, I think, a need to have a look at the issue right along the whole riverbank and just put a bit more work into that and have a look at the overland flows in particular.
Thank you. And just lastly, Your Worship, that effect that a lot of this work may have severe financial implications as far as the budget goes. My understanding is, and I'm not talking about what's in here, this other work may not be ready, obviously, for a CO submission or LTP, and we'll just have to deal with that when we come to it. Is that correct?
So, through you, Your Worship, that would be my recommendation. Councillors will see in the report that there is a project in here to deal with this specific site. We don't yet know whether that budget is sufficient or not. Some of the early estimates, range up to $1.5 million, I think, from memory. But look, the testing that we're commissioning is really important to allow us to design a solution. Look, if that cement layer proves to be a lot stronger, we've heard Tonkin and Taylor say that that will affect the solution that we put in place. I think there's a lot of discussions to go with other asset owners and other landowners. Look, we're in there because we want to protect our assets, and the reason we're in from the beginning was our asset was the walkway. The report that we've just received and had tabled indicates that there's potentially a risk to the rail bridge, and that's in the report, the rail and the road bridge. So that's a pretty critical asset for us, the road bridge. pretty critical asset for Kiwi Rail, the rail bridge. So look, we've commissioned alongside TNT, Bloxham, Burnett and Oliver, who are our structural consultants, to work with Tonkin and Taylor just to assess more carefully the risk to that particular road bridge. Equally, you know, Vector have got a pretty strategic asset through there, which is the gas main. So look, we need to, just at this point in time, collectively work together, take what actions we can to mitigate any further risk there, and I think there'll be a period of time sitting down and once we've got all the information and how we can best solve it for each of the asset owners. So there's a lot of work to go.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm concerned about the residents that are working in the area and walking in the area. I'm not good with maps. Tell me there's no danger for anyone working in any of those buildings.
At this point in time, there's no danger for anyone working in those buildings. If our conclusions have reached anything otherwise, then we'd be having a different discussion with building owners. What our work's shown is that there is the level of let's say safety or stability of the riverbank as it gets back in towards those buildings is probably somewhat less than what you would want for a new building. And the building owners, particularly Tainui, are just they've been made aware of that information and they've assessed that. In terms of individual safety, the top of the walkway, as I understand it, is secured and both ends are secured from access. So it would require someone to deliberately get onto that by crossing barriers to get into the walkway itself, which is where the high hazard area is.
So staff are satisfied then that keeping people away from the area, we have gone to more than just a piece of yellow tape? You know, I mean, children are inquisitive if they're down there in the weekend.
If I can, through the Mayor, yes, we have got barriers in place. We have also put signage in place as well, and advising that. We monitor that on a regular basis to ensure that that barrier remains in place, and we will be looking at on an ongoing basis as well.
Yeah. Councillor Bell.
Thank you. I wonder quantify the cost. I think it's quite an important one for the next 10 years anyway, and I wouldn't like the long-term plan to go out with this not being signalled.
Okay. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. I'd like just to explore slightly further the hotel in the IRD building. I heard what you said to Councillor O'Leary, that there is currently no danger for those people using that building. Could you explain to me what the threats are then for those building owners? More, are you saying that if they were to make any renovations or any changes that would affect? I'm just trying to expand on the level of risk for those buildings.
The level of risk would increase if the slip started to regress further back into their property.
And the likelihood of that?
There is some likelihood that will regress, but what we've said in the presentation before is that we're unable to predict the timing or the magnitude of that with any degree of certainty, unfortunately.
If you were being asked as an engineer whether those buildings should have been built, now with the clear activities that have unfolded, have we picked this up earlier?
That's a very difficult one to answer.
At this point in time, we're not sure, just as our team looking after our assets, how those buildings have been built. So that's one of the things that we've been talking to those asset owners today, and is to, you know, some of those buildings may well have been engineered with recognition of the site's instability in mind, in terms of how they founded them and how they built them. So look, it's something that we are talking to those asset owners about and just sharing information.
We've made some
I don't know.
assumptions about the building foundations, and they're pretty pessimistic assumptions as far as stability is concerned. So there's some further steps before we can get a better picture of stability of them.
Your Worship, one further question. I mean, clearly my concern is under our statutory obligations and functions we provide in providing planning consent and building approval processes. And I'm wondering if staff have had time to refer back to those approvals. They must have been given by council and must have clearly, well, I guess the question is, did they address the clear threat that has now eventuated?
I think though, Councillor Wilson, what the General Manager says, they don't actually know they're in the process of. That was his answer to your question before. And it's a very good issue that you raise, which, as I heard the GM say, absolutely all over that, and at the moment in the process of gathering that information. Yes, because it's a valid point. Yes.
Your Worship, I guess my point to you would have been that since that is potentially a significant legal risk to this council, at the same speed as they've been able to put together this short presentation, one would have assumed they could have gone to the building department and pulled the files and looked into those matters.
We're doing that as we speak.
Great.
The Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. 4 quick questions. There is a further slip that Sally is aware of further north from a previous large slip, which has involved a very mature willow tree coming down and causing, I think, some quite severe bank damage, but that's on a flat area. So I'm just raising that as something, have you looked at that, or should you be looking at as part of that overall situation? The second point is that we did have a submitter in the 10-year plan that advocated for some sort of bridging system that could mean that you could close the walkway that's at risk and still create an access way. And I wondered if you'd had a look at that as an option, because I thought that was quite a creative solution. The third one was, are you, and I know you're talking with the landowners, but are you looking and have you been asked about cost sharing? Because clearly it seems that Tainui has riparian rights on that property. You've got Kiwi Rail, you've got the owner of the IRD building, presumably with rights that slip down to the river. I shouldn't have used that word, but go down to the river. So I'm wondering if you've looked at what the cost sharing might be and whether the Earthquake Commission has some role in covering some of the cost of this. I'd be interested to know that. And the final point is that have you looked at the impact this might have on asset sales? Because who would want to buy the Ibis and the Novotel when you can't kind of, I don't think at this stage, split them into 2 properties? Have you looked at recommending to council that that should not be considered in the short term? Because I wouldn't imagine any buyer would be interested if that risk was noted on a LIM report.
So did you get all of those questions, Sally?
Yes, I did. I'll start off with answering and then I'll hand over to Chris on a couple of those. With respect to the Tree and Hamilton Parade, yes, that will need to be part of the wider view that we've referred to. I have heard about the bridgeway option that was talked about as part of the submissions, and that is something that we need to look at as options going forward of remedial options. With respect to the landowners, I have been talking with Tainui for some time since the slip occurred, and we've obviously now got this information in front of us, so that needs to be looked at as the way going forward. As such, has that been raised as a conversation yet? No, it hasn't, but I'm sure that will be something that we will all need to look at the protection of those assets as we go forward.
And so is there some insurance aspect around it through is it EOI, the earthquake?
That's something that we also need to look at in terms of the Earthquake Commission of this is a natural occurrence that's occurred, and therefore what are our opportunities there as well. Initially last year we also looked at options with NZTA around the cycle network as a key transport network for us as well. So there are emergency works options there to be tapped into. With respect to the asset sales, Chris, if I can hand that to you.
Yeah, look, just to supplement Sally's question on the cost sharing, look, we've clearly positioned today in our discussions with the other asset owners that, you know, it's their assets at risk, and although we've been undertaking this work to look at our asset, which is the river walkway, there are further discussions to be had once we collectively have the information about how we move forward. So look, that's clearly put on the table, that's a discussion that we need to have in terms of how we move forward and yes, how we fund the solution, I think. Look, in terms of asset sales, look, I think it would be wrong to leave here assuming that there is a you know, major risk with the IBIS or anything. Look, it's a recent construction. Yep, they would have had a lot of engineering work go into the building of that structure. And look, I'm sure that they will be very satisfied that they've built a sound structure there. So look, yep, we are pulling our building control files for a couple of reasons. The main reason is there's probably really good information in there and geotechnical information that we could use and help with our analysis of the stability. But you know, it would be wrong to leave this room thinking that there is any sort of problem with those buildings. Like, a bit like the bridge, what Tonkin and Taylor have indicated to us and the work they've done, there is a potential risk, and we need to do some more work just to have a look at that. So I think it's just too early to bring asset sales onto the table.
Right, Councillor Boss?
Half my question has been answered, but just the other half. Are we sure that the walkways that we're doing are done in the right way, and that we can carry on doing them the way we're doing it, or is there a potential that the walkways may have caused some of it?
Look, I'll just say one answer because it's quite topical, as we're about to open another walkway to Hikawai. Look, there's been a lot of engineering go into that particular site, so we went into that knowing it was tiger country in terms of building the walkway through there. So look, we're as confident as you can be in a natural environment like this Waikato River. I think we've got some good engineering into that structure. So look, I think that's our way forward in terms of any new build that we have. It's eyes wide open on some of the risks from building in a natural environment.
And the second part of the question is in the not too distant past, we had people talking about the bed of the river on a continuous basis, changing its depth or the ability of the power generation to cause lots of water and then none and then some more and whatever. Does that have anything to do with the stability, the bed of the river have anything to do with the stability of its banks?
If I could start that answer and Peter might jump in. Like, in terms of the bed degradation, I think what you're talking about, certainly Mighty River Power have got some consent obligations to monitor that. So just coincidentally, talking to them a few weeks ago, they're just in the process of, I think they have a 5-yearly survey that they've got to pull a report together and come out with the findings of that, and so they're monitoring that over time. So talking to Mighty River Power, I think they're about 3 months away from pulling all the survey information together and releasing that, and so we can understand, you know, right throughout the river what the bed degradation is doing. So my understanding is that would probably be useful information for Tonkin and Taylor in their assessment, and I've been contacting Mighty River Power to see whether we can get some early information on surveys they may have done. Peter, have you got anything?
Certainly the behaviour of the river, including bed degradation, is a factor in terms of stability. In this particular instance, there's nothing for either of those slips to indicate that any change in behaviour of the river in those two instances has caused the slips themselves. It's probably more associated with high groundwater level saturation of sort of buffer more softer soils, which is resulting in soil.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McPherson?
Thanks. Just in relation to a couple of new are we going to be going through those with a bit more of a fine-tooth comb in relation to the geotech issues that now that we're aware of this problem, or are we satisfied that that work is already being done totally successfully and as much as is needed?
Look, my basic assumption is that they will be well engineered and they'll be taking account of all of those risks. But we will be certainly keeping an eye on that process, and I'll be talking to our relevant departments. But my assumption is that on any major construction build on that river, that there's good engineering going into.
I guess I've always assumed that you would be doing that, and you're assuming, but perhaps in light of this, would we not be wanting a bit more than just assuming that business as usual has covered it?
Yep, absolutely. We'll be linking with our relevant departments to alert them to these issues and assure ourselves.
Okay, Councillor Mahood?
Several of the questions have been asked, thank you, Your Worship. The only one I want to just sort of focus on is the importance of the fact that that bridge is rail electricity, main electricity into the city, as well as road, and the scouring issue was something that was sort of really important. So it is broader than what we're seeing, because we know that the banks are very crumbly. With regards to the implications of the sand hardness, how far are you going to be able to, if we take what's here, how far are you going to go along and do that? Because there are implications further down. Is that going to be a whole stretch? Just those bits? What?
It'll largely just be for the two areas where we've got slips at the moment. But what we'll be able to do with that is extrapolate out to the sort of the north and the south of those areas.
Well, therefore I'll ask the second question. Is this what I call being bitty with it, or would it be more useful to actually do a proper one and be done with it now, so that we can actually really look at the whole stability of that steep area down there? I know it's going to have a cost, but I want to know from the geotech experts.
No, it's a good question, Councillor Mahood. Yeah, is it time to do analysis of the whole riverbank, I think is really your question. Because what we're hearing is that you're going to focus on these particular areas and then use that data and geotech information to extrapolate out the assumptions of the rest of the riverbank. So had some thought been given to a full report?
Councillors, could I ask that we take that away and give some consideration?
Yes, thank you.
I think it's a difficult question to answer until you know. Look, that could be a really big process to do it to the level we've done now on the whole riverbanks in the city. We need to balance, the cost and the effort in doing that against the benefits and the likely outcomes.
Yes.
So it's more likely, I would think, that maybe there are other high-risk sites that we already know about that we might want to do a bit more work in, but I'm sure there's lots of sections of the river that we should just accept that it's a natural environment, there's ongoing risks, and from time to time there'll be a bit of pavement slumping in the walkway that we need to fix. I think we need to carefully think about that once we've sort of got through the brunt of these issues.
Right, okay. So Councillor Mahood, it could be that once they do this report, then that's on your watch list to maybe discuss again.
Well, the reason I bring it up now is because we're going through this district plan review, and the central plan is encouraging or not encouraging certain development. I really want to have that brought forward for those very reasons, that the work might not be done for a long time. It'll also help not only us, but people who are wishing to invest in the city understand the issues. So that's why I'm bringing it forward.
Yes, no, it's a good point.
Yeah, one of our other obligations, I guess, through the district plan is to alert people to these hazards.
Yes.
So when they're building and
that's
they're
right.
developing, they're aware of the hazards and they can do the engineering and the work.
Precisely the point. DPR is the basic.
All right, so Councillor Mahood, any other questions?
No.
No? So I've got Councillor Henry and Councillor Gallagher.
To actually go there and a train goes across. My question to the engineers, if you like, is now that the train usage is going up on almost a monthly basis and probably going to double in the next couple of years, crossings by heavy goods trains, has that vibration had anything to do with the July maybe load up with water vibration type Christchurch type, vibration, water slips? You're discounting that, or is that part of something?
Probably wouldn't think so. And that it seems, I think it seems that the vibrations from the rail bridge probably not sufficient to induce the type of slip movement that we had.
Have you felt the vibration?
I've felt the vibration, yes, I have.
Vibration feels worse than it really is, actually. It's not in the scale of the events that we're seeing down in Christchurch, of course.
No.
I think the perception is that it's actually worse than it actually is. You've got to bear in mind as well, the foundations for these stuff extend down to harder stratum underneath.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just supplement for councillor's information as well? Just in terms of the vibration, I assume you're feeling that when you walk across the road bridge. So look, I had Bloxham Burnett and Oliver there yesterday, and we talked about the movement on the road bridge, and got reassured by Bloxham and Burnett and Oliver that's quite normal for a structure like that, a lightweight steel structure.
Okay.
So we were sitting there and the bridge was moving a little bit, and we asked the same question. And the answer was, this is quite normal for a lightweight sort of structure. There is an issue, which is just a routine issue of fatigue when you've got a lightweight structure like that always moving. So they're going to just pull that into their regular inspection routine to make sure they're covering that in terms of long-term fatigue of the bridge.
Okay, now Councillor Gallagher.
Yes, my question is to Chief Executive, and I'm noting that the Council has been asked to note the actions being as outlined in the report, and it relates to risk register and governance process from here. Potential financial liability of affected property owners. There was a question raised around the implications for Council's asset sales program, which I personally don't think we should transact in the public arena because of obvious reasons of talking down an asset potentially, but obviously it's an issue to be addressed. Councillor Bell raised the issue of, the long-term plan in terms of, financial consideration in the process, because clearly what I'm seeing here is that there's an allocated sum of money for this particular project, but obviously potentially it's going to go beyond that. The immediate priority is not the riverbank walkway and cycleway. With due respect, that's a secondary consideration. The immediate priority is to ensure in the shortest possible time land stability in order to maximise our chances of preventing a significant, hopefully not catastrophic, event in that area, which would have huge implications, and noting the impact of the main trunk, the east-west trunk railway line, road, property, central city, etc. In terms of governance and management, Mr. Chief Executive, do I take it that obviously there'll be a regular report into probably the Finance and Monitoring Committee? Do I take it that obviously there will be a special chapter now in terms of an allocation with the LTP to ensure that we meet legislative requirements in terms of financial allocation? And do I take it potentially in confidential that we will be picking up Councillor Wilson's query around potential legal liabilities we may or may not have as a council? And then do I take it that either in confidential, because other property owners are affected, we'll be receiving a full report as to the potential liability of the property owners themselves in that particular vicinity, and as far as the remedial work is concerned? So just from you, because obviously in the end this report comes from you, no one else, you're the only one we employ, can you just give me an idea of the process you see going from here in terms of that risk register?
Thank you, Councillor. I think the answer to all your questions is yes. In terms of reporting back, Obviously, this is, as soon as we've recognised the scale of this, we've reported it to you, and we will continue to report to you regularly through Risk Register and through the appropriate reporting to committees. So without being too specific about this, because it's just early days, you now know what we know, and we'll keep you informed. In terms of the LTP process, the LTP will recognise and reflect what we know now, which is we're highlighting to you is limited, and we need to do more information in order to fully dimension this around costs, around liabilities, around legal issues, all those impact on assets. So, so the short answer is yes, we will continue to keep you informed on this, and we will be managing the risks as best we can through that process.
So in terms of governance processes, it's a given. I realise we've got plenty of opportunities in the next 3 or 4 weeks to actually be further updated around this process, but it would be your intention, if need be, I assume, probably to call a special meeting of F&M together or whatever, because I think, notwithstanding you have delegated authority, this is a matter of such moment that I would expect councillors to be informed. And I think, for example, today, without wanting to get into the proverbial into the kitchen argument, there's been a number of constructive suggestions and questions as a result of this report.
Yes, so can I just, sorry to interrupt, but I think we can encapsulate some of that into the recommendations. I've written some wording as soon as we started this debate. That might cover that off, Councillor. Can I just ask you, in terms of time frame, how long, it's a work in progress, get that, and you are busy doing a more in-depth analysis. What's the time frame for completion of that?
Through you, Your Worship, we estimate 3 months to get to the point where we have the further testing done. We've done the further stability assessment on the bridge structures to be in a position to start thinking about how we go forward. So 3 months is our immediate sort of time frame.
Right, so if I was to put that all together, that within 3 months' time you'll be ready to bring back to us a more comprehensive report with your analysis and the mitigation action list to deal with the issues. You will have covered off the issues about property owners and liability and risk and all of those things. 3 months? Yeah.
To be clear, Your Worship, that's very early days. We're putting this in front of you without a lot of information. The estimate is that we will have that level of clarity within around 3 months, but please don't take that as a set figure. If it's going to be different than that, we will report that back to you.
So what I'm just trying to get here then is, just in terms of the recommendation, councillors, sort of the reporting back line, if you like, with the next stage of the more comprehensive analysis. And I did want to fix a date on that. And the second aspect was, just in terms of the 10-year plan, I don't think this needs to be in the recommendations, but as part of the CEO's recommendations, you will pick that up. So in terms of budget implications, the CEO will pick that up in his CEO submissions, and that's he'll factor in a contingent liability. We've already got money in the budget, but we're hearing other figures, so he'll pick that up. So we've ticked that one. Just then, in terms of the recommendations, I was just wondering, councillors, if we added in a third point on those recommendations in regard to the next report, and I think it comes via the risk register reporting. It's one of those more fuller reports that sits under the risk register. So can I fix a date, Chris, as to when you will report back in a full report under the risk register reporting? Which date are you comfortable with?
Yes, Your Worship, we've already taken that action, and Kelly's already used our risk management procedures to capture all of these issues and have it in that format. So that was our intent, to just put it into that process and report it up at every risk opportunity, every risk reporting opportunity.
So it will do that, but we're talking about the more in-depth report that will sit behind that point when you're ready. So the first point in time when you can do that is when we want that to come back.
Yeah, so if we pick the first meeting in about 3 months' time, Anthony might have the schedule.
Yes, okay. So in the recommendation, councillors, if we look at 11 and 12 as is, and if we add another recommendation, that this issue will be reported through the risk register, and that a full report of that risk analysis and update will be provided to council and the first council meeting after 3 months, in 3 months' time.
Yes, so that would,
And you can,
August council meeting.
yes. Okay, so councillor's happy with that wording, does that encapsulate? Yes. So Anthony, did you get that wording?
Not quite, but I'll get it in here. It's the
Right.
16th of August, Your Worship.
Okay.
Just picking up on the CEO's point that the 3 months is to have a really good handle on the engineering and
Yes.
technical aspects, and probably a status report on
Yes.
some of the other issues. So I imagine they'll be ongoing.
Yes, well, once it's on the risk register, we get the little update anyway, but I'm talking about the comprehensive report. Okay? So can you just read that back, Anthony?
Sure. This issue be reported via the risk register and a full report be presented to the ordinary council meeting on 16th of August.
Okay, the councillor's happy with that?
Can I ask you just a question?
Yes.
On slippage, is there anything we could do to mitigate any further?
We are taking mitigation steps already, yes.
Yeah, the ones that we're putting immediately in place are to do with water. Like as I say, when the slip happened in July, if you can look over, you'll see the asphalt funds and everything trying to control water. There's a few more things that we can do and some issues with our stormwater system. So look, we've identified those, and that's probably the best thing we can do, along with the monitoring and keeping a close eye on it at this point in time.
Mm-hmm. And just
Sorry, talking to Sally, that date, the August meeting, is probably, to give us our 3 months, it's probably the September meeting.
So it's the September meeting, Anthony, thank you. Just another point while Anthony's just fixing that date. A number of councillors and myself have received communications from people about the slip on a regular basis, and I know we've fed them through to you. People have been wondering why on earth this is taking so long, and we've all let people know that it's the riverbank, it's the Waikato River, it's a complex geotechnical issue. I think it is important that there is information put out in the public domain clearly and factually accurate from this organisation that lets people know what's actually happening here, rather than relying on the media just to simply report the bits that they think will be of interest. And perhaps the sign can also be amended so that the public who are walking around there understand that there's, work in progress, because, I've had lots of communications about the slip and when's it going to be open. Okay, so Anthony, what date was that?
It's the 27th of September.
The 27th of September, but of course it's on the risk register for every register anyway, so we get the update, yeah. Okay, councillor, so we're clear on that?
So we just read the
resolution, Anthony, thanks.
This issue be reported via the risk register and a full report be presented to the ordinary council meeting to be held on 27th of September.
Well, I won't be supporting that for the reason is that we need to say that this will be noted regularly.
Well, it is,
there's
so
an issue.
Councillor Gallagher, it comes via the
risk
risk register, so it's on the risk register, so every meeting it's on that register for us to ask questions, and of course, as has been the practice in this council, and I think the staff have been particularly good at giving a heads up early to councillors about an issue if it crops up on the way. So I think that your issue is covered
I just think it could be, we've had letters about floods, didn't prop up early, but the issue is I think it would be a good idea just to say in terms of as long as there's going to be a clear communication strategy, all right? I'm not wanting to frustrate this motion, but I think it's really important. It's a very serious issue, and I think people say, well, risk register, what's that? So as long as our PR people can really be very focused in explaining to the people of the city the actions we're going to take in terms of that risk register.
Yes,
So
and that's actually what I just said, Councillor Gallagher. Okay, so I think, is everyone clear on what's happening?
Yep.
Yes. Yep. So I've moved that recommendation. Is there second? Councillor Mahood is seconding that, so would Right, so the next item on the agenda is item 10, which is the minutes, I think, on your committee, Councillor Gallagher, is that right? On page 26.
Angela.
Excuse me, Your Worship, yeah.
Oh, yes, sorry, Councillor O'Leary.
That's okay. Your Worship, I'll move the minutes of the 2nd of May 2012 for the Operations and Activity Performance Committee, with the exception of item 14.
For this meeting, Councillor Leary, who I acknowledge as the acting chair of the committee because I wasn't present at that particular meeting, I just would move that consideration of item 14B deferred. And I'm only doing that to procedurally test, as a procedural test, and I just want to explain why. We've had a submission by our former Mayor, Margaret Evans, representing the TOTI Trust, and we also had a submission from the representative, of course, of MESH. And I think the consideration council, in the light of the evidence, the information that was presented to us, whether or not council chooses to see if there's any way in which the two proposals can be reconciled in a very short order of time. Now, wanting to discuss this procedural issue, this is in no way, shape or form wanting to in any way frustrate the very, very worthy proposal from MESH, and to acknowledge the incredible hard work that they've undertaken. So I'm just seeking a procedural process by which council should consider and how do we deal with this item. Obviously, I'll be listening very closely, as we would, to people such as Councillor Bell with her background, and also the chair of the committee. So it's a clear choice whether the council wishes, in the light of the presentations, the two presentations today, whether or not, and the information that you're aware of, and given that the worthy nature of obviously both organisations, whether or not the council wishes to defer this item to see if there can be a reconciliation between the two proposals, or whether council upholds the recommendation of the Operations and Activity Committee and proceeds forthwith. So that's a procedural motion I'm moving.
Right, so I'm just checking just guidance in terms of process here. So So that takes care of the body of the minutes, right?
Yes, with the exception, yep.
Yes, so that's a motion that we can vote. Can we vote on that and dispose of that and then deal with item 14?
Correct, that would be the cleanest.
Right, so what we're going to do, councillor, is just dispose of the balance of the minutes, then gets that one out of the way. So Councillor O'Leary, seconded by Councillor Mahood, has moved the minutes subject to number 14, item 14.
Exception.
Yes, except. And so I'm going to put that now. All those in favour?
Aye.
Any against? Right, so it's carried. Now we have a motion on the table in relation to item 14, public art update. And we have a second to Councillor Gower, and we have an amendment from Councillor McPherson. That amendment is?
To confirm the item 14 as appearing in the minutes.
Right. And is that a satisfactory wording for a motion?
That's fine. That's been seconded by Councillor Boss.
Right,
As an
okay.
amendment.
Now I
That's
have
right.
a list of people who wish to speak. So I'm going to start with Councillor McPherson, because you are you've moved the amendment.
Thanks, Your Worship. Look, without wanting to get embroiled in a debate between sections of the arts community, that'd be an absolute no-win position. I do think that the MESH have come to the council following the proper process. They have a track record of supporting the city with good pieces of art that have created good controversy at times, which is what you want and expect. Yeah, and we usually send Councillor Henneberry along as our shock troops to generate interest, and that works quite well too.
I thought it was a museum.
Yeah, that's right. Well, anything to do with art. Philistines Incorporated, I his company's called. But seriously, in this, at the proper time to raise questions about this was in the public meeting, public forum of the meeting where this was discussed before we made a decision. There's been a lot of opportunity to do that, and I just think this would be to defer this would actually be disrespectful to a important community organisation that has followed the process that we have set out, and I see no reason to change that. Absolutely, we should look at what Toti puts before us, and there will be other places where they can look at putting that artwork, those sculptures, and that's fine, but let's not be disrespectful towards an organisation that's actually done quite a bit for the city in recent times.
Thank you. Councillor Mahut.
Thank you. I couldn't say it better, so I won't. Yes.
I'll second that.
That I just understand that also that the funding is now in place for the mesh proposal, which in my book means that good faith is really important in this matter. They've gone through a process, we've created that process, they've gone through it, as we heard by other ones, and so I'm right in the camp of let's not let them fight, let them cooperate by all means, but at the end of the day, this council has got 99% of the way, and it sounds like Mesh has got 99% of the way too. It would be improper for us to do anything other than support this amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Bonds.
Your Worship, this seems to me, this whole issue, appointed a group to look at our art. I'm sure they will look at all sorts of art, but that's the group we've appointed. What was attempted this morning was for another group to come in, as if we had decided already that we were going to have 4, 6 or 8 statues in our city. We had also decided where they were going to be put. We have not had any of that discussion, because if I now wanted to put art in the city, I would tell you what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it, how I'm going to fund it, and where I'm going to put it. And this council may not agree with any of that. So the whole process is out of kilter. The whole process is not done in the right way, and it leaves us open to other groups in the art community, because people have lots of thought on art, to just come in here, tell them what they're doing, name them, give us the history, change the name of the road, and let's go and get some bronze, and we'll put them up where we tell you. That's not the way to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
It is great to have an increasing interest in public art, but we have a public art development very specific for good reason, so that all the interested parties, council included, know where they stand and where they're at in the process. It protects our interests and others. If we were to derail the process today, we would lose credibility and we would struggle to find groups willing to work with us. And I'd have to say, I suspect that if Toti had reached the stage that Mesh has for this project, Toti would be arguing to stick with the process. I would encourage those groups to talk to each other.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I just support everything that Councillor Bell has just said. Do we need lots of public art in the city? Yes, we absolutely do. But I just want to remind Council that we actually made a commitment to the Mesh Sculpture Trust in February of 2011, and that went through the Community Development Committee, and it was then ratified by full council. And that commitment clearly states that council formally endorses and supports the aims and aspirations of Mesh. So going against that is something that we just simply should not and cannot do. I'm also authorised to tell you, and Councillor Mahut is absolutely right, that the project is being completely and totally funded by the Gallagher family. They are a family that continues to contribute hugely and widely to the city, and we need to celebrate that and we need to honour that. they also continue to contribute. So as Councillor Bell eloquently pointed out, any movement away from those kinds of commitments and promises that we've made to Mesh Sculpture Trust is something we should not do. We have to follow this process.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Gow, then I've got the Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship.
Yes, I've got you,
I
Councillor.
seconded that motion for a very, very simple reason. I was aware, thank you, I was aware of some of the details of that presentation. I was completely unaware of other parts that came out this morning, and to me it came as a surprise. I seconded that because I wanted some more information, which I did not have at that particular time. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thanks, Your Worship. Look, I should have consider that a conflict of interest. I only know one or two Mesh members. I don't know much else other than the support for public art. So I would like that noted in case the Waikato Times picks up some level of interest in that. I'm absolutely opposed to what a former mayor of the city is trying to do in hijacking a process. And unlike my colleague just a little down the table, this is not about a first reading or a second reading. This is about the process we have agreed on. Mesh is delivering for the city, and I'm delighted that their work, as Councillor McPherson points out, has caused some controversy, because I think that's actually one of the purposes of art. You either love it or you hate it. But what I hate about this is the way in which the former mayor came in here and put new information on the table. It hadn't been shared with Mesh, a complete disentanglement from the process that the former mayor should well have understood.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Hennebury.
At the moment, quite rightly what everybody said, but if there is a situation we can work with the other group, we have to, because I don't go along with a lot of the art. I have some views on art, and this may be the other side of it that maybe is being presented, so I think we should work with both groups. It's fantastic that we do have the interest we have, and right now I support Councillor McPherson's motion. Amendment, sorry.
Yes, so Councillor Leary, did
Your
you...
Worship, sorry, just a point of clarification. Gallagher Charitable Trust. So I
Right,
need to
yes,
be
thank you
clear.
for that correction. Things, and we signed that off. And when we have competing interests, which is wonderful, absolutely wonderful, very important that we keep to the process so that we don't disappoint anyone, and everyone understands that you've got to get yourself in the process, otherwise, you know, you're not part of it. And I think it's very important that we do stick to the process. So, councillors, we're going to vote on the amendment. So we'll do that on the voices. So all those in favour of the amendment?
Aye. Aye.
Any against the amendment? Right, so the
Carried
amendment's
unanimously, Your Worship.
So is that now the motion?
Yes.
The amendment becomes the motion. yes.
So we vote again, all those in favour?
Aye.
Any against? Carried. Right, thank you. So councillors, we now...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just make one? I know it's not reaching sort of...
So...
There is no animosity between the two organisations. What our position was, we have a process proposed in place approved by council, we just wanted it followed. And
Yes.
we will work with them.
Yes, and I think that's the thing, the process is there, and all of those who are really interested in participating can all get together and sort out what they think's the best one and bring it forward into the process. That's
When
great.
you give us money, we'll
So,
let you do.
we're now going to adjourn for lunch and return at 1:30.
Anthony, you're going to lock the door.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's exactly what. I went and watched the whole one.
This is going to come in the future, and it's just about training for all of us collectively, and they're going to help. So that is the minutes that should be there instead of the ones we've currently got there.
And that's 3B, is it?
That's 3B.
Yes.
And there is no 3C.
Right.
So I'll repeat it if you like. It's in essence about we're endorsing a proposal by the Ministry of Civil Defence to actually help us with training for elected members and senior staff in the 5 councils. Okay?
So just on, so process-wise, Anthony, is that the correct procedure?
Yeah, no, that's fine. We haven't yet confirmed the minutes, so we can actually change them now.
Right.
So we'll put that, obviously
The problem
change
is
that.
we've got 5 councils that have all
Yes.
received the wrong ones, but we'll deal with that internally.
Right.
And then 4,
Your Worship, just a procedural
Yes.
point. My recollection a properly orchestrated set of minutes should then be recirculated and then sent back out. I mean, how are we to know that what's being said is accurate here?
because the person who did the original minute taking passed a interim minute to me because she was going on holiday the Friday. The minute taker we normally have in our own department was coming back on the Monday. She asked me to do that. We checked it, but what I had noticed was that the minute taker of the real meeting had said, see Councillor Mahood for insert of the real thing. I didn't know that until after she'd gone. Look, I don't want to expand on it other than it was a genuine mistake of several different people doing things they're not used to doing. So it wasn't until I looked at them in here, because they'd gone out before I saw it, I thought, oh Lord, we have got a genuine mistake, and it was a genuine mistake. It's not on something that was other than an A for noting that this is going to happen. It's not for a decision of council, and it was only the 5 Council Committee endorses that this process happens sometime in the future, of which you will be informed what, where, when and how.
So Councillor, just on a point in terms of understanding the amendment process, understand that, but in a committee such as this where there's no other, it's not like our own council committee where there are other members of that committee that can
verify.
Yes,
Yeah.
well, I suppose second them, I suppose I was sort of thinking about. In those circumstances, Anthony, is that process then that would need to actually go back?
Well, yes, what I intend to do, we've got unconfirmed minutes at the moment.
Yes.
We obviously need to correct them. We would then send them out to the other members that are involved in the group and circulate them to then councillors also.
Right.
So the minutes will include the motion which you do or do not carry today.
Right. So I'm wondering, Councillor Mahood, whether
amendment.
Yes. So I'm wondering whether these minutes actually should just corrected and then come back.
No problem. It's just to let you know what they really should be, rather than have someone turn around and say, what on earth does that mean? And the answer is, I've just told you what it means, and I'm very sorry that it's been so late. If we'd realised it beforehand, I would have dealt with it. And so consequently, what I'll do is then, if you accept that they will come back, you want to have a better, that the minutes come back for formal confirmation.
Yes, that's what I think. So why don't we defer them?
Yes. There are several.
So can I suggest, Councillor Mahood, that you move that this item be deferred to the next council meeting, and then Councillor Forsyth seconding that, and they'll go away, come back.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm very
happy with
sorry.
that? Great. So all those in favour? Aye. Any against? Great, thank you. All right, the next minutes from the Strategy and Policy Committee for yesterday.
Your Worship, I'll move the minutes of the Statutory and Policy Committee meeting held on the 23rd of May.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Bell. Okay, all those in favour? Any against? Carried, thank you. So, councillors, we're now at the public excluded section. So I'll move public excluded.